Hello and welcome to my NXT ArRIVAL review. This is just going to be me talking about my thoughts on the show. I watched most of it live on the network last night. Had a lot of problems with the main event. Glitched out, couldn't see it. Real bitch of a glitch right there. No rhyming intended, but anyway, the show itself. I was really looking forward to it. I actually watched the second to last episode of NXT. For the first time I sat down and watched a full episode. I reviewed it on my WordPress page, RazorwireReviews.wordpress.com. If you want to see that full in-depth review, you can go check that out there. So I started to get into NXT a bit, and it wasn't because of ArRIVAL. I didn't know about it until I actually watched the episode. So it seemed like a good time. I didn't watch the last episode though. I'm going to check that out on the network because it's on demand, so that's cool. But ArRIVAL, I was really looking forward to it. Bo Dallas, the NXT champion, defending against Adrian Neville. Paige, the NXT Women's Champion, defending against Emma, who's been getting a lot of airtime on Raw and SmackDown lately. And then, of course, the epic Sami Zayn versus Cesaro. Not rubber match, but I guess you could say that the last match of their feud and their rivalry that's kind of been loosely going on in NXT over the past year or so. So for me, I remember hearing about Sami Zayn and Cesaro having a fantastic match last year, the 2 out of 3 Falls match. I only recently watched it on the network this week on the This Is NXT program, which showed it in full, and I just thought, what an incredible match. And then, this match was being built up, and I liked the build to it. I really enjoyed how, it was all about Sami Zayn proving himself to Cesaro, and how Cesaro didn't really take Sami Zayn seriously as a threat, and how he was, looking down on him, how Sami Zayn had this knee injury that they're really playing up, and that he wouldn't be 100%, and how Cesaro wasn't taking this seriously. You've got bigger things going on in the WWE main roster, and I loved the build-up to this match. It was brilliant. They did a great video package at the start of the show to hype it up. The match itself, I mean, it just got from good to great to stand out to maybe even classic. I mean, I don't want to overhype it. I'm not one who throws out these things too lightly, but it might even be a 5-star match. They got so much time to put on an incredible match, and I must stress, it's nothing to do with the fancy moves. The ridiculous kind of Frankensteiner from the top rope that happened, or the mental Swiss Death, European uppercut that Cesaro hit on Sami Zayn, or the planches or anything like that. It's really about the storytelling. That is why this match was so good, and the selling and the psychology, because we've seen these two guys have incredible matches, and we saw that spot where Sami Zayn dived through the middle rope from one side of the floor through diagonally to the other side, almost like a suicide dive, catching Cesaro as he jumped through into a tornado DDT. Amazing spot. He went for it again this time. Cesaro knew he was doing it, hits him with a European uppercut. Fantastic spot, great psychology. I love that when people have feuds and they go for the same spot, but the other guy, their opponent, has already kind of scouted it. They know it's coming. I love that kind of psychology in matches. I used to do it all the time when I had more than one match with someone. A really fun piece of business, I guess you could say. I love it when that happens. And Sami Zayn really selling his leg. I mean, he did this kind of moonsault plancher to the outside, and instead of using his legs, he actually jumped onto the top rope on the back of his thighs and then did the springboard moonsault, which Cesaro ended up catching. But I love that little detail. Even as he was jumping up to do it, he was holding his leg a little. The selling was fantastic from Sami Zayn. Selling, is a real lost art, I feel like, but it really feels like there's been a renaissance of it lately with Sami Zayn. I think Cesaro is one of the best sellers in the business right now. I absolutely love his selling. Daniel Bryan is really bringing back, proper old school selling in a big bad way. Reminds me of Bret Hart in that sense. And the match, the story of Sami Zayn, who was, really kind of the underdog here. Cesaro's a lot bigger than him. He's a lot stronger than him. He's a lot more powerful and athletic. Not that Sami Zayn isn't athletic, but the odds were stacked against him, especially with this knee injury. And just when Cesaro was beating him down and he was absolutely done, but he came back, and then when he kicked out of that Swiss Death on the 1 count, I thought that was a fantastic spot. People can look at that and say it was kind of like a no-sell, but it really was just this absolute adrenaline, last surge, ditch effort. And I really wish the crowd had reacted better, because it was such a moment for me. And then of course he just ended up getting his head taken off and losing, but it was a great way to go out, and I loved the way it built up, the way it ended, and I just thought that was just such an amazing match. And then as Cesaro left, you know, he's victorious, he goes back in the ring. And I don't know if you noticed, but the last matches that they had, whenever Cesaro won, he'd turn his back on Zayn and he'd scuff his feet, you know, behind him in a very disrespectful manner. This time he got in the ring, you know, there was a slow build to it. Sami Zayn's on the mat, he's, you know, devastated. Picks him up and gives him a genuine hug, and they hug each other for a good, you know, 20 seconds or so. And, you know, little shake of the hand, respect, you know, given, and that was that. Cesaro can go on to still be a heel, and Sami Zayn just looks like $1 million because of it, and it was just that is what pro wrestling is all about. To have a match as incredible as that, with the physicality, the athleticism, the storytelling, the selling, and the psychology, and for at the end of it, even though the one guy got completely mauled at the end of it and beaten, he still looked good at the end of it. Those two guys get it, they really get it. And the other thing that really needs to be put over as well is the commentary team. Oh my god, I forget the guys, one's Brian Saxton, the other one I forget. William Regal. I think those two guys are really good. I'm going to have to start watching Main Event or Superstars and when they commentate on, because they actually call the moves, you know. Blue Thunder Bomb, you know, and this lock and all this. And I'm just like, you know, this isn't Raw where they're like, oh, great maneuver. Anyway, about this WWE app, this is how you install it. I mean, it was just, Raw's just pure shilling, but this was real wrestling talk, wrestling commentary, and Regal was really putting over the story and putting over the little details. Like, you see how Cesaro's picking up his thing there, and Regal just puts both guys over like champions. And for me, one of the best kind of marriages of wrestling commentary I've seen in years. I mean, probably since JR called, you know, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. In fact, it might be my favourite match since then. It was just brilliant. I mean, yeah, you know, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, I love those guys. I think they've had great matches over the past few years. You know, Cena and Punk was an amazing match at Money in the Bank, but I enjoyed this match more. It was more my style, more my kind of wrestling. Awesome. Now, the Divas match, I thought was brilliant. You know, great kind of technical wrestling. It wasn't perfect, you know, but you can tell they're really putting the effort in. I'm not too sold on Emma, by the way. I think her awkward but cute kind of character is, for me at the moment, just awkward. I'm not really seeing it's just kind of flatlining for me. Not really getting it. Paige I like, you know, she's got a good look to her. She's different. She stands out. She's got a bit of confidence behind her. She's not fully there yet, but Emma, I like Emma's in-ring work. Her finish, the Muta Lock, the Emma Lock as she calls it, is really, I mean, she really puts it in tightly, and she really kind of makes it look like she's trying to rip the girl's head off. Great, great stuff. I love it when a submission move looks like it really, really hurts. Another example of that is the single leg Boston Crab in the Cesaro Zayn match. Paige and Emma, it was a good match. There's a point where they did, Emma gave Paige this big setup powerbomb, really good. But what was really great was Paige's kick out, a real nice kick out where her whole body left the mat. I love it when they kind of really kick out with emphasis instead of just, you know, really, you know, you're trying to get out of it, and it just makes it more involving and more realistic, and you can buy into it more, and you can enjoy it more. At least I do when I see stuff like that. And the finish I thought was great as well. I mean, it was just logical, you know. There was no way that Em was going to get out of that submission hold. It was a really great submission hold. I think Regal called it a Scorpion Crush Lock or something like that. I've never seen it before. I'm sure that, you know, a lot of other wrestling fans are familiar with this move, but I thought it was really good. And again, a solid submission finish that works well. And they did the same kind of thing. They kind of, you know, bit of a hug after the match, respect given, really good. Stephanie came out before the match to kind of, you know, present it and stuff, and the crowd were chanting, "You still got it," and she acknowledged that and said, "I've never lost it." I thought that was funny. Fair play to Stephanie. Triple H opened the show, by the way, you know, with the "Are you ready? This is NXT," and they've arrived. I thought that was cool. Hyped the crowd up. We had Dusty Rhodes, Pat Patterson in the crowd, Larry Zbyszko. We had Cena in the crowd. And then Shawn Michaels came out, and I'll get to that in a second. The other two matches, the Ascension versus Too Cool, very random. I said this in my network review. What was going on in the WWE headquarters at the time? Ascension versus, who can we put them against? Has anyone got Too Cool's number? I mean, where would that come from? I don't get where the two roads met with Too Cool ended up in this match, but you know, it is what it is, and I love Too Cool growing up. It was cool to see them. Scotty looked weird bald, but the worm is still over as ever, and it was a fun little match, nothing great. We had Mojo Rawley against that Moonchild guy, I forget his name. That was okay. You know, I think Mojo Rawley could get over. I like his kind of his hyped gimmick. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous, but a lot of the gimmicks in NXT are kind of over the top, and they seem to be working. Then there was Tyler Breeze versus what's his name? I've forgotten now. it was Tyler Breeze versus someone, I'm sorry, but the match never got started. Alexander Rusev, I think, interfered. This is where my stream just flatlined, unfortunately. So that was, you know, that was what it was. For me, really, you know, it was the 3 core matches in this, and there was just a couple of little matches thrown in just to kind of spice it up a bit. And, you know, they shouldn't be trying too hard on that, so that was fine. The main event, Shawn Michaels comes out and was really meandering for a while. I mean, but I love seeing Shawn, you know, but he just, it took him a while to get his point across, I have to say. Which seems to be the case whenever he's on the mic these days, but, you know, it is what it is. Shawn came out, you know, had the belt there. I thought that was great again. It's just tying in with the honor of wrestling and the respect and everything. Having a legend like Shawn come down to kind of oversee the start of this match, you know, and have the NXT belt and shake the hand of both men before they start the match. Bo Dallas, Adrian Neville. For me, it's great seeing Adrian Neville because when I first got into backyard wrestling around 2003, 2004, I've been doing it since the late 90s. When I got into the UK backyard wrestling community and started travelling around the UK, my first match in Newcastle in 2005, when I travelled up there, Pac was there, Adrian Neville was there. He wasn't wrestling, but he was just, you know, seeing his mates and stuff, because all the people I used to wrestle with wrestled with him when he was a backyard wrestler, which, you know, you're probably not supposed to talk about, but who's watching this video? So I never really knew Pac that well, you know, but I'm very good friends with all of his best mates, and I always hear like what's going on with him behind the scenes and stuff. I remember them telling me, you know, the story of him getting signed back in 2012, really surreal story, that one. But it's just even more surreal now to see him, you know, in the main event of a live show on the network for an NXT title, with Shawn Michaels introducing him, and of course he won the match, and Cena was applauding him from front row. Triple H came out, raised his hand at the end. It's crazy, and it just goes to show you that if you can put your mind to it, you can do anything. But being honest, you know, even as a backyard wrestler back in the early 2000s, it was clear that he had something special. He was a head and shoulders above the rest of anyone in the backyard wrestling community, and it was just so obvious. And again, I could talk about that more in depth, but yeah, it's really great to see Pac come so far, and it was a great match. It wasn't like a classic 5-star match. It wasn't as great as the opener, but for me, what I liked about it was they didn't try too hard. They didn't, you know, they didn't try and do anything mental. Not to downplay anything they did do, but with ladder matches, the bar really has been raised far too high. You should never try and beat the matches that were going on in the early 2000s, because you're just going to kill yourself and end up, you know, ending your career early like Edge, and it's not worth it. What they did was really smart, you know. Bo Dallas was trying all these things, these tricks to kind of keep Pac grounded, you know, keep him away from where he's at his best, in the air, you know. And when he kind of trapped his arm in the apron, I thought that was a bit weak. It didn't really fly for me. They could have done something a bit more with that. But the leg caught in the ropes was good. There were some good spots with the ladder, you know, some nice high flying stuff. Adrian didn't. I always feel like calling him Pac, but you know, I'm one of those people who kind of, when I hear people call Daniel Bryan Amdrag, I'm like, oh, get over it. He's Daniel Bryan now. Stop, you know, living in the past. But for me, it is hard to call Adrian Neville just Adrian or Neville. I just always think of him as Pac. But you know, Adrian, he didn't overdo it. He did a big, nice crossbody. You know, it wasn't like a big flip, but just a really clean crossbody to the outside. Didn't do too much outside of that in the high flying stuff, so that was good. And he didn't overdo that part of it. I like the way the matches worked. There were some cool spots in there, some nice psychology. Well, you know, just like little kind of neat spots, like where Bo Dallas was trying to give him a catapult into the a ladder wedged between the middle rope, and Neville kind of grabbed the bottom rope to make sure he wouldn't get his face smashed in. Then he flipped himself up. That was a really cool little spot. And then the ending was good as well. I mean, just the huge, what does he call it, the red arrow, the 360 shooting star press onto the ladder. Almost went a bit too sketchy there, but he landed it, he hit it, and it was a really realistic finish. You know, they didn't have to do anything too kind of overly flashy. Well, not that that wasn't overly flashy, but I mean, you know, hits the red arrow up with Bo Dallas on the ladder. Bo Dallas rolls to the outside. Adrian slowly getting up the ladder. Bo Dallas crawling in, just doesn't quite get there in time, and Adrian pulls the belt down. Really, really good match. Enjoyed it a lot, and I might even do a full kind of in-depth, blow-by-blow written review of this show. But you've probably heard my full thoughts in it now. But if you're interested in that as well, then keep checking back on RazorwireReviews.wordpress.com, where I'll be posting probably a review of this show in written form with kind of star ratings and stuff like that. So that's it, my thoughts on NXT ArRIVAL. Brilliant show, you know, really signals, you know, the future not only of NXT and the WWE, but the network as well, and hopefully they can get those streaming issues ironed out, because that was a real bummer when I couldn't watch that main event. I had to watch the ladder match today, unfortunately on demand, so there you go, it is what it is. NXT ArRIVAL, my review, awesome. It'll probably end up being a better show from top to bottom than WrestleMania will be, and that's really depressing, but for now, I'm happy that great wrestling like this is happening under the WWE roof, down at NXT. The future, in my opinion, has never been brighter. You know, the Attitude Era was an era we'll probably never see again, with people like Triple H, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, and Stone Cold Steve Austin all on the same, you know, era, roster, whatever you want to call it. We're never going to get to that level again with just absolute superstars, but we are going to get to a level where there's going to be an amazing amount of talent, an amazing amount of young talent, and I really do think the future is brighter than it's been in a very long time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool. Even though I'm sure he's a quite nice guy, really. He's a quite nice guy, really.